Hey, welcome back. So in this video, I thought we'd go back to looking at Bun. Now, if you remember about a year ago, I did a video on how to get started with Bun, and that was a lot of fun. But now since Bun has matured quite a bit and actually has got its 1.0 release out, I think it was back in September, I thought what a good time to go back and revisit it. And the reason I want to revisit it is that I am looking to build a WebSocket server. In fact, what I'm trying to do is build a large language model agent kind of bot marketplace where all bots can come in, and that is going to be run by WebSockets. So I thought, perfect, because one of the nice things about Bun is it's super fast. And one of the reasons it's fast is it's using the JavaScript core engine opposed to using Google's V8 engine, which makes it much different to kind of how Node.js works. However, what is cool about Bun as well, it actually has Node.js compatibility, which is something it struggled with about a year ago. So anyway, without further ado, we are going to get started and we're going to build ourselves some WebSocket servers in Bun, and we are going to build ourselves some WebSocket clients as well that connect to it. Alrighty, so if you haven't used Bun before, you can actually go to bun.sh, which is the website, and it's actually got a really fast guide to getting started with Bun. So you see here, you just do a curl install in bash. And I'm going to open up my terminal, paste it in, and then that will go ahead and install the latest version of Bun onto my machine. So as you can see, it's successfully installed, all is good. And once you've got Bun installed, you can just type in Bun in the command line, and then it's going to give you a whole bunch of options that you can use. So you can see there's things like Bun init, which will allow you to start an empty Bun project from a blank template, or you can do a create, which will allow you to do a create, blah, blah, blah. There's Bun install, so it works very similar to NPM for getting started. So let's just clear all of this, and we are going to create ourselves a new project. So I'll create a new folder. We'll call it Hello Bun. And we'll just go into Hello Bun. We'll clear this out for a second. And then I'm going to type in Bun init, very similar to NPM init. And then you can see it's picked up my folder name. Hello Bun is the package name. It's wanting to start with index TS. That's fine. And as you can see, it's now scaffolded me up a nice little Bun project. So if I want to, I can open up Visual Studio Code by just typing in code dot, and then that's going to open up that project in my VS Code editor. As you can see there, it's helpfully got a console log hello via Bun. If I wanted to, I could just type in bun run index.ts. And then you can see it runs hello via Bun, and I could type anything else here. So I could say hello Chris, because I am that vain, and then we'll just run that one more time, and it says hello Chris. So again, very similar to working with Node.js. So before we create the WebSocket server, what we will do is create ourselves a regular web server, and then we will change that into a WebSocket server afterwards. So to get started, I need to create myself a Bun web server. So to do that, I'll just delete this, and I'll create a new constant. We'll have something called a server here. And then as you can see, if I type in bun.serve, Bun has its own built-in fast HTTP server. So I don't actually need anything like Express to get started. I can just use the built-in Bun web server. And just if you want to know how fast that is, if we come back to the Bun website for a second, you see bun.serve, and then it's done a sort of comparison for server-side rendering on React, and you can see that Bun, by their standards, is kind of smoking Dino.serve, and it's also smoking Node.js, which is pretty cool. So that's one of the reasons I'm choosing Bun in this project, because I want its speed for my agent bot marketplace of the future. But let's come back to Visual Studio Code. So all I now need to do is open up my brackets, and then I'm going to say I want this to run on port 3000. And then I just need to use fetch request. So that's one of the nice things about Bun. It's got full support for, obviously TypeScript, but it's got full support for the built-in native fetch request coming with JavaScript. Okay, so now that I've got that, I can just do return new response. And then we can say hello world, and we will just semicolon terminate that. And finally, I just want to log out that my server is actually started and listening on the port that I specified. So we will just say listening on a local host, and then we will put in the port. So in this case, it's going to be server.port. and then we'll just semicolon terminate this. And now if I run bun index.ts, you can see it's listening on localhost 3000. And then we'll just open up a new tab here. We'll clear this, and if I do curl localhost 3000, you see it comes back with hello world. And of course, if I open up my browser and do localhost 3000, I get hello world as well. So it's really fast to get up and running with a web server on Bun. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is take the web server that we've got up and running, and now we're going to convert it to support WebSocket server requests. So to do that, we just need to do a little bit of an import at the top here. So we'll say import, and I want to import server WebSocket, and that is going to come from Bun. And again, very nice. WebSocket capabilities all built into Bun by default. And again, it's super, super fast. So now that I've got that in here, I need to update my fetch so that it can handle incoming web server socket requests. In order to handle WebSockets, I actually need to make a change to my request here, and that is the ability to sort of upgrade the connection to a WebSocket connection for any WebSocket requests. So to do that, I will just add server as a parameter here, and then I will just put in this if server upgrade request, if statement. So if a WebSocket connection comes in, it's going to upgrade that connection, and then if it doesn't, then what it will do is just return hello world. So now there's a lot of red squigglies there. Don't worry about that at all. So how we are going to get rid of that is by putting a comma here, and then we can add in a WebSocket. And this is going to be the stuff that is going to handle any of our WebSocket requests. So there are 3 types of requests we need to handle. It's going to be the opening of the WebSocket connection. It's going to be any incoming messages that happen, and then it's the closing of the connection. So the clues are probably in the title here. So to handle the open, I just need to type in open WS, and then what we will do initially is just console log it, and then we'll put some functionality behind it. So we'll just say console.log, and we'll say connection opened. And then similarly, we need something for the disconnection. So you can imagine that, that would be close. And again, we'll just say here, connection closed. And then finally, if there's an incoming message of any sort, we need to handle that as well. So that case will be message, and then the parameter will be WS message here. And then all we will need to do, I think initially we'll just console log the message. So we'll say incoming message, and we will just say in that particular case message, and we'll log that out. We'll do some responses later on. And with that, we now have a basic WebSocket server. It doesn't do anything. It's just going to log when connections or messages come in. But then we will add some functionality as we go along. So now if we come back to our terminal, we'll just close the previous server down, and then we'll fire it back up again for a second. If I come into my browser, you can see it's still going to say hello world because I'm not invoking a WebSocket connection. So how am I going to create a WebSocket connection? Well, before we create a client, what I'm actually going to do is we're going to test it using a tool called Postman. So if you haven't seen Postman before, you can Google it, and you can see there's a Postman sort of website. You can download it. It's a kind of free tool for usage, but it allows you to do API requests. What's most important about Postman in this particular case is Postman has the ability to do WebSocket requests. So I will open up my Postman app on my machine. So if I click on the new button on my workspace, you can see it gives me a bunch of options. The ones that I'm going to click on is WebSocket, and we'll just close that over here. And that now allows us to perform WebSocket requests in Postman without us actually having to create any clients yet. So all I need to do now is just type in localhost 3000. And then if I click on the connect button, you can see it's connected to localhost 3000. So if I come back to my terminal, you can see it has logged connection open. And again, similarly, if I click on disconnect, you can see it's coming up with connection closed. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to connect one more time. So we'll click connect. You can see it's connected. It's come back with connection opened. And now I am going to send it a message. So I'm just going to say, hello, Chris. And we'll click send here. That will have now gone here. And you can see that in the response, hello, Chris has been sent. And if you see in my terminal, incoming message, hello, Chris. And now if I even type something else, I can say, hello world. We'll send that one more time. And again, you see hello world has been sent, incoming message, hello world. And of course, if I disconnect, then my connection is closed. So far I've been able to handle open connections, I've been able to handle closing of connections, and I've been able to send messages, which is, of course, is what I want. Now, if I want to get a little bit more complicated, we can extend the functionality to do some stuff. So in this case, what we will do is we will send a welcome message. So we'll turn this into an echo server. So we'll say const welcome message, and we'll say welcome to my stupid echo service. That is cool. And then to send the message to the console, we can just go ws send, and we'll put in a welcome message. And now when we open a connection, it is going to send that message to the client. And then of course we can extend what happens when a message comes in. So in this particular case, what we will do is just echo back the message that they had. So we'll just do ws.send. And of course, the incoming parameter is message. So we will just send that back the way, and that makes it an echo service. And then on closing, there's not a lot of point of sending any messages or whatever, because they're obviously disconnecting. Then we won't do anything within that. But of course, as things get more complicated over time, which we'll probably do in another video, you're going to want to have things like connection managers, and you want to clean up connections. That's going to be important when I create my agent bot and marketplace, because as bots connect, I want to be able to match them up, and I want to be able to match those connections. So that's where this sort of closed connection will become useful as I start to map them in my directory and clean up connections. But for just now, we're just doing a simple echo service. So we'll save that. We will start our server back up again. And now if I come back into my Postman for a second, now we'll reconnect, and it says, welcome to my stupid echo service. So I'm getting that message that we sent. We'll now send hello everyone, and we will just hit send. And if we look at the responses here, you can see it's came back hello everyone from the console. And again, if I come back to the console, you can see connection open, incoming message, hello everyone. I've not logged out that I've sent a message back, but you can see hello everyone's came back in the console window there. And then I can click disconnect, and of course the connection is closed. So we've got ourselves a nice simple echo service. Now we're going to make this a little bit more complicated. We're going to handle some incoming messages and then be able to parse it and process it a little bit. So I'm going to change this from being an echo service, and I'm going to turn it into a time service. You know, really complicated, isn't it? So let's come back into Visual Studio Code for a second. And what we will now do is change this from welcome to my stupid echo service. I'm going to say welcome to the time server. So it's a little bit more important. Ask what's the time, and I will answer. Okay, so that's my new welcome message. We now need to have a look at the incoming message and see if we get the message, what's the time? And if we do, then we're going to return the time. And if we don't, we're just going to send a sort of default message. So to do that, we will change this a little bit. So now what we're going to say is if message dot trim. So we want to get rid of anything off of the back end of that. We're going to convert it to lowercase, and we're going to say if it's equal to what's the time, then we will send them the time message. So we'll just do that, and we'll say const current time is equal to new date, and we will say that is going to be to a locale time string. So that will now convert that. And you're going to see there's an error here. We've got a squiggly property trim does not exist on type string buffer. So this is probably one of the things that's interesting about the message string. It's coming in as an array buffer. So we need to do a little bit of work to be able to process that message. So I will now say const message string equals type of message, and we'll say if it's equal to string, then we will return the message, and otherwise we will do a new text decoder, and we'll do decode message, and that will handle the parsing so that we now can replace with the message with message string, and it's going to be a nice little string, and then we can check for the time. So now that we've got the time here, what I'm going to do is send that to the socket. So we'll just say ws.send, and we will say the time is, and then we'll just go $current time, and that will send the time back. Now, of course, if they haven't, for whatever reason, typed in the right message, then we want to be able to send them some sort of message to say, hey, you need to ask me what the time is. So what we will do here is just return this so that we can close off this if statement. And now we will send a new message. So rather than echoing, we will say, I'm just a silly time bot. I can only tell the time. We will save that, and now let's just start our server back up again. And if we come back into Postman, let's reconnect. You see, welcome to the time server, ask what's the time, and I will answer. So let's send that message. So we'll say hello everyone, and then it should come back with I'm just a silly time bot, etc. So if we look in the responses, you will see I'm just a silly time bot, I can only tell the time. And now if I come back to the message and I say, what's the time? And then we hit send, and then come back to the response, you can see it comes back with the time is 3:06:41 p.m. So we now have our time server working. We can parse the messages. We can put in whatever we want. Now, what's important about this is probably a good time to discuss the differences of why large language models are becoming important. So if you haven't seen any of my videos on things like how to use things like Mistral 7B, or if you've seen kind of the GPT videos, then one of the things you will know is that with the advent of large language models, then they don't need a preciseness of messaging. So if somebody said something like, didn't put the exact what's the time, for example, and they just put what time is it, what, then this bot here wouldn't be able to answer this. And this is why large language models, or one of the reasons large language models is making such a huge impact in the world, is it can actually, this is a good use case for it, where you can use the LLM to then interpret the message better. So it can look at all of the variations and say, actually, I'm going to classify this as somebody's doing a time request. So no matter what they ask, the large language model can say, okay, I get it. This is somebody looking for a time request, and then be able to come back with the actual time. So hook you into that sort of if statement and say the time is whatever. So at the moment, I'm just using a sort of very kind of static rule-oriented based system. So I'm checking for the exact syntax. But if I was to extend this in the future, I would probably use some sort of large language model. I might not use something like a Mistral, which is huge. I might use a GPT-2. I could even use something like a BERT model, which is really good at classifications, for example. There's lots of different things that I could use to do that classification. And that would be a really good place in the future for us to insert the usage of large language models, just to recognize that intent. Anyway, with that being said, it works, so we're in a good state. So the next thing that we will do now is we're going to build ourselves a client so that we can connect to the time server without having to use Postman. And then that will set us up in the future for our agent bot marketplace. So now we'll create our client. Again, I'm going to create it with Bun, but this time I'm going to do it as a command line client. And the reason I'm going to do that is in the future, when we create our agent bot marketplace, then everything's going to be running as independent processes. So for that reason, I will do this in Bun. I will do it as a command line console application. And also, I don't think there's so many examples of doing this with console applications, so I think it'll be a little bit more fun as opposed to creating a JavaScript web app, which I think is a little bit more standard. So we need to create ourselves a new directory. So we'll call this we'll call this one WS client, so WebSocket client. Let's just cd into that for a second, and again we'll just run bun init. So we'll just forward through all of that. And of course, it's scaffolded up my application as I did before. And if I do a bun run index.ts on that, it's just going to come back hello via bun as we did before. So what we will do is we'll open this up in Visual Studio Code one more time. So we'll just get rid of this. Here is my index.ts from a new project. And we will start making those changes. The nice thing about Bun is it's fully compliant with JavaScript specifications, etc. So if I want to, I can just type in consocket equals new web socket, and then we just put in the WebSocket URL. So in this case, we're going to go to localhost 3000 because that's where my WebSocket server is running. And this will literally open up the socket connection to my WebSocket server. So now that we've established the connection, what we want to do is stick some event listeners in so that we can figure out when the connection is open, whether it's closed, and then be able to get any messages coming from the server. So in this case, I want to listen to the open event. So I will just have my event listener listen for open. And again, we will put a nice little arrow function in here so that we can do any processing of whenever that open event occurs. For just now, I'm just going to do a console.log, and we will say connected to the server. Now that that's done, we will do the exact same for disconnection. So we will say close. So I'm going to listen for the close event, and then we'll say disconnected from the server. And of course, I want to be able to get any messages that come from the server. So we will listen to the message event. And what's probably different about the message event is that I actually want to log out whatever it said. So in this case, we are going to just pass in any data that we've received. So we'll listen for event.data, and then we'll close that here, and then we will be good. So now that that works, if I actually just run this, so we'll do a bun run index.ts, you can see connected to the server, and we've got welcome to this time server, ask what's the time, and I will answer. So that's pretty good. We're connected to our server. It was really easy, wasn't it? But you can kind of see that nothing is coming back to the server just now because I'm not handling anything from my console that I can send back to the server. So we will deal with that just now. Let's clear this for a second. We'll come back into Visual Studio Code. And what we will now do is create an interface to our console so that we can listen to any messages that we input from the console. So to do that, I'm going to import readline from readline. So you can probably guess what I'm going to be doing here. We are going to be listening for any read lines coming from the console. So if we do const rl equals readline.create interface, and we will just open that up. We'll semicolon terminate this for a second, and we will have input process dot stand in, and output is going to be process dot stand out. So that's now created me a nice little listener onto my console. So I've got access to standard in, standard out. Of course, I want to clean this up whenever I disconnect from the server, so I'll just do an rl.close here, and that will close off that interface. And now, like I can listen to a socket, I can actually listen to any incoming messages. So I will do that by doing RL on, and I'm going to listen to the line event. And of course, I'm going to accept in a line as my parameter. So that is what is going to be passed through. And now if I want to, I can go socket.send a line. And then what I'm going to add in here is I'm going to just add in a little rl.prompt here so that we can tell the difference. And now we are pretty good. So if I come back to Bun for a second here, you'll see connected to the server, welcome time server, what's the time, and I will answer. So if I go blah, 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 it will say I'm just a silly time dot. I can only tell the time. So that message has been passed through. But now if I type, oh, what's the time? It comes back with the time is 3:21 and 29 seconds. And if I close this, we are done. Come to my server. What's the time? Connection closed. So now we have built our client. So that is all I'm going to show for today. So it's been pretty cool. We've used Bun. We've created ourselves a Bun server. We've created ourselves a Bun client. We've interacted with that service. We're using WebSockets. Bun is pretty cool. And it's, as you can kind of see, if I come back to bun.sh for a second, you can see that WebSocket connection-wise, you see it's by their calculations, and I'm not going to prove it, it can handle something like a million per second, but of course that's over sort of 32 clients. But that means it's still a super fast WebSocket server, which is the reason I'm wanting to use Bun for my fun little project of being able to create my little agent bot marketplace, because I want to be able to handle a lot of WebSocket connections. So hopefully you found that useful. Hopefully it gives you a bit of a starter and understanding of Bun. You can start to play with WebSockets. Probably in one of the upcoming videos, I'm going to take this further forward. And what we will do is we will probably connect up one of the large language models into these servers so that it can start interacting, you know, and maybe do some of the classifications, etc. But what we will also do is then introduce our large language model as a bot onto the network. And therefore, to be able to do that, I need to be able to implement some sort of bot directory so I can let bots join my network from my WebSocket connections and then be able to pair them up and interact with other bots. And we'll probably cover that in another video as well. So anyway, I hope you found it useful. Bun is a fun framework. It is really quite a nice service, super fast. And I will catch you on the next video.